So I'm Courtney Rogan, marketing director here at Pull Everywhere, and my co-host today, who will be leading you through our product and some of the features, is Tim Sherrill, who's our senior customer support specialist.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. Some of you may have received some emails from me or called our support line and spoke with me. Throughout today's session, there is a GoToWebinar questions panel in your GoToWebinar control panel. That's a great opportunity to put in any questions you have throughout today's session. We will be doing a live Q&A at the end. Additionally, if our audio cuts out or something goes weird, please go ahead and let us know there. And just a quick note, we are recording today's session, and there will be a copy of that emailed out to each of you later on.
Great. And then we may not get to everyone's questions. Don't worry, we'll follow up with everyone and then also follow up with them most popular questions in our follow-up email. And so today we're going to start off with talking about some general best practices for audience engagements at small to large events. So any size from like 25 to 2,500 and above. And then we'll go through a demo and then some things to ensure your success with Pull Everywhere should you choose to use it at a live event, big or small, some proven solutions we can offer you, and then we'll go into Q&A. So to start off, some audience engagement strategies from our experts and our customers. So a little bit about my background before Pull Everywhere. In my past life, my job was to fill this entire room you see in front of us, including the guy making the funny face you'll see in the front of the photo. This room and also 5 other rooms simultaneously for 3 days. I've learned a lot over the past 3 years about what fills these chairs, what doesn't fill them, and what keeps them filled session after session. To give you an idea, 6 rooms for 3 days is like 75 to 80 hours worth of content. And so I'm going to go over some of the best practices that I swear by and also the ones that I would coach all of my past speakers on. So the first one is the expertise gauge. Sometimes going into an event, you may be a speaker and you don't exactly know who's going to be in your audience. It could be the first time you're speaking at the event. It could be a new event. It could just be like a very big general event. So one that comes to mind for me is like Dreamforce or something where there's a whole range of industries and titles and departments that come and attend. So you may not exactly know who's there. So one thing I recommend is gauging your audience at the beginning. So it's not going to change the slides and probably won't change a ton of what you talk about, but it can change what you highlight and what you make sure the audience takes away. So you can ask the same question at the beginning or the end, helping prove the worth of your presentation as well. It helps to get your audience, and it's a great way to break the ice. So the next one is to embrace change. So you may have heard, this is not my trade secret, but you may have heard from TED Talk that they've suggest that you change your slides every 3 slides or every 3 minutes. People get comfortable pretty quickly when at a presentation, and then that's when their eyes and their focus starts to drift back to their laptop, back to their phone, back to their email, or whatever they may be could easily get distracted with. So something I try and recommend is not to do several slides of text in a row, or if you do, go through them pretty quickly. And then also every 3 slides, maybe change it up with a different image, or this would be a good time to put in like a poll or some sort of engagement. And then also less is definitely more. No one comes to a presentation to read a bunch of text on a slide. Sometimes a simple photo like a little plant in a very cute pot is all you need to get your point across. This also goes for your topic. A lot of the times if you're speaking at an event, you get 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Sometimes if you're lucky, you get 40 to 45. That's not a lot of time to put a ton of a bunch of different topics into one presentation. And also not putting a ton of slides in a 30-minute presentation. Like I've seen before people try and cram 50 slides into 30 minutes. That's crazy and insane. And a lot of the times your slides are moving too fast that people can't stay focused on exactly what you're talking about because they're so worried about the slide changing every like 30 seconds. And then for challenging the norm, so this is one of the more recent best practices that I love to share with speakers and people that are about to go and speak at an event. So I've seen this done in a few really great ways. So a lot of the times when you're at specifically a specific industry event, your audience and your attendees may think that they know the topic they're going to hear the speaker present on. They may be like, "Oh, I know this is going to be great. I might pick up like one or two things." But I really like when people go and then to do this in a couple of different ways. You can either ask them about a hotly debated topic. So I've gone to a session where someone goes, "Who owns the lead commit, sales or marketing?" And then the audience turns to their neighbor and is like, "Oh, well, I think it's sales or I think it's marketing." And then you can dive into why you think why you have the position on this topic. So for this one specifically, be like, "Here's why sales should own the lead commit, or here's why marketing should." And then another way to do this is to tell them at the beginning that there's a problem to be solved and then present how to solve it. So they may, going back to where they may think that they know what they're doing, what session they're getting into, and then you can flip it on their head and give them some really tactful ideas of how to solve the problem. And then lastly, we've got repetition, recap. So you want people to remember your content. Cover the one big takeaway at the start. Just go ahead and give it away, because the people that are gonna get distracted, which there's a small percentage that no matter what you do, they probably want to sit in the back of the room and check their email. Covered at the start, at the middle, and again at the end. Do you have several takeaways? So sometimes it's like, here's 5 ways to solve a problem. Cover them in a recap slide at the end of your presentation. This is probably the one slide that I've told speakers that you can totally break the norm of having more text than you probably should, because this is going to be the one slide that your audience will take a photo of and post on social or put into their notes. And this keeps them, and especially if you tell them you're going to have a recap slide at the end, this keeps them listening to what you're saying and not worrying about taking notes from the slide. So to review real quickly, here are the 5 ones. And we'll also send these out in a blog post in the coming month or so. And then now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to hand it over to Tim, who's going to talk to you about how you can implement some of these great ideas into Poll Everywhere.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. Wow, Courtney, I love those best practices for audience engagement. So many of you have played around with Poll Everywhere before, but throughout today's session, I'm going to actually invite you to also take on the role of your audience. And would love for all of you to take a brief moment to join me at pollev.com/webdemo, either from your cell phone, secondary web browser, whatever is most comfortable for you. We're just going to do a quick refresher on what Poll Everywhere does best. And that is live audience responses. So what words come to mind when you think of your most successful events? Give everyone a few moments to join me at Poll Events 1. If you want to use your cell phone and don't want to open a web browser, you can also text Poll Events 1 to 22333 and respond then. Networking. Awesome. It's engaged, learning new things, interactivity. Exactly. And so you'll see as people get more responses in here, this word cloud is going to grow and dynamically change, which is really going to contribute to the dialogue that we can have around this. You'll see that really there's something where our core idea here is engaged, engaging, active, fun. These are all things that I think you've nailed dead on. What makes things fit in a really successful event? The way that I like to talk about it is I want people to leave my events and be able to tell the story of my event to somebody else. I went to this great conference. There was this awesome speaker. They did a great job presenting the material. I was really engaged. Here's what I took away from it. And here's what we got to do at the end of it. And that way they've created a full narrative that engages everyone they talk to about the session they went to. Role play. I love that. Fun, learning. But you'll see that no matter what we're putting in here, that idea of engagement and engaged is really staying central to our questions. So now let's take a moment to talk about how we can do that in Poll Everywhere. Heading over to our site, many of you should be familiar with your My Polls dashboard. For those of you who have Poll Everywhere accounts, this is where you've been creating your polls, organizing them, getting things ready. For those of you who don't have Poll Everywhere accounts yet, I highly recommend you sign up and play around in this dashboard. It's going to give you a lot of insight into what we're talking about today. So, at the basic level, before you even begin designing your event, what I recommend is figuring out what you'll need in terms of a plan. We have a huge variety of plans and pricing options for you, but the key component of that is how many concurrent sessions you're going to have, because you're going to need a number of user licenses equal to that number of concurrent sessions. To view the number of licenses you currently have on your account and to view your account's settings, simply click on your username in the corner here and go to the Account Admin tab. From the Account Admin tab, we're going to navigate to the Account Info tab. So I'll now see that my plan comes with 2,500 responses and 5 user licenses. I know that I only have 2 concurrent sessions that I want to plan for, so I'm covered. If I needed to purchase additional users, I can do so on the plans page, or you can contact support, and we're happy to guide you to the pages to add additional users. However, I've got these additional user licenses. I want to make sure that I get that user invited. To invite extra users to use those user seats, you're going to go to your Manage Users tab. Here's where you can see your current users that you want to add to your account. You also to add more, can click the orange Invite Users tab. From here, you'll enter the email address of the person you want to invite. Click Next. See the email that you will be sending them, letting them know that you're inviting them to plan. You can click into the box to customize it. You'll confirm that you understand you'll be sharing your paid features with them and choose Invite. It'll prompt that it's sent out the one invite successfully, and then you can view your pending invitations under the Invitation tab. From this tab, you can always cancel the invitation, resend it, or view the invitation you sent out. Once they've accepted your invitation, either by creating a new Poll Everywhere account or signing into their existing one, they'll appear here in your users. You'll see that I've got my second user here ready to go, so I'm ready for my 2 concurrent sessions. Now that we've gotten our number of sessions together, we're going to go back to our polls page. Now, the easiest way to administer your polls for your event is to create all of your polls from your master account and then send those polls out to the people who will be presenting them. To get started with that, we're going to click the orange Create button, and we're just going to create a couple quick questions to play around with. Where was your most successful event hosted? And I'm going to add another activity because I want to give us a couple of polls to play with. For this one, I'm going to do another word cloud. I just happen to love the word cloud. And let's go with, what do you wish you could tell yourself before your first big event? And I'm going to create that activity. Now, here on my polls page, you'll see that I've got the activity we did a little bit earlier, as well as these 2 brand new ones. Now, I know these are the 2 polls that I want my sub-user to present from Ballroom 1. So, I'm going to want to move those polls over there. To do so, I'm going to select them, and then I'm going to group them together. Now I've got this new group here with the 2 polls that I want to have the other presenter present as well. I'm going to hover my mouse over it and rename it. And I'm going to call it something like, maybe, I know this is for the uh, event planning track. So I'm going to call it Event Planning Session 1. Update my name. Now, because I want to move those over to my sub-users so they can present them in the ballroom that'll be hosting that track, I'm going to select the checkbox next to the events polls, select Move to another user, and begin typing in their name. When they pull up here, I select them and then hit Apply. I'll then be asked to confirm that I want to send 2 activities to that sub-user. I'll hit Apply. The polls are removed from my account, but I like to make sure that where I sent them they went, so I'm going to click on the Account Polls tab here. From here, I can view both my polls as well as my sub-user. I simply expand my sub-user and see that they have the Event Planning Session 1 moved from my main account at this time. They're now ready to present and manage these polls from their account. If I don't want to move the polls to them, I just want to send them a copy because we're going to use the same questions in multiple rooms, I can also use the copy feature. So for instance, if I want them to also present the what words come to mind when you think about successful events, I can select it and instead choose copy, either to a specific user or to all users, hit apply, and again confirm the action. Now, from my Account Polls tab, I can see that my sub-user also has that one poll that I want them to present as well. This allows you to manage all content and distribute it across all of your users in a quick and efficient way so that you make sure that each ballroom or each presentation room and each track has the polls that they need for their sessions. So now that we've talked a bit about creating polls and organizing them, let's talk about branding. One of the big things you'll want to take a look at when you're getting ready for your event is how you want your slides to look. We have a whole suite of visual settings and customization tools. So for this poll we ran earlier, what words come to mind when you think of the most successful events, I did no branding for it. I left it exactly as it was, but now I want to add some visual touches to it. To access our visual settings, I simply select the Visual Settings menu and then look at my options. Now, if I want to add my title, a logo to my title bar, I'm going to expand the title section, scroll down, and choose a logo. Now, as you'll see over here, I've got my logo sitting on my desktop. So I'm just going to browse from my computer, choose the P logo blue, open, and upload. Now, I can choose whether I want my logo to be left, right, or centered. If I don't want to use that logo, I can always delete it and choose a different logo file. For instance, maybe I want my full logo with our company name. Now I can again choose left, right, or center, or remove it entirely again. Perhaps I want the logo as the background to my poll. For that, I can go to the Background tab and again go through that same process of choosing. Another big source of branding is colors. Perhaps I want my title bar to reflect my company or brand's colors. To get there, I expand Title, choose the Start color. I can either post the hex code value for the color I want, or can use our color selection tool to find the perfect color. I can then set a second gradient color if I want a gradient title bar, or can set it to the top color as well. I can then choose either to save, or if I don't quite like those choices and I just want to exit out, I can hit cancel and it will revert to the old visual settings. The last thing you can do, if you'll be presenting in either a really bright room or a really dark room, is use our new themes feature. With our bright theme, you'll see our bright colors. With our dark theme, you'll see our new darker colors. And with our classic, you'll return back to our classic look. I'm going to go with our bright logo, our bright colors. I think it looks the most clean and most organized. So that's how you can brand all of your slides. But now, what if you don't want to do that for all of your slides? That's where our template pull comes into play. We're going to head back up to this gear icon, but this time we're going to head to My Settings. From the My Settings page, you're going to be able to head to the Pull Settings tab. And from here, set a template pull using the pull-down menu to select the pull that has all the branding you wish to use and apply. Then, if you have existing polls you want to brand, you'll choose this second option, or to apply to all future polls. You'll simply select Save, and now that's set as your template poll. Now, if I come back to the polls and create another one, for instance, a clickable image poll perhaps, where I say, where did you travel from to attend today's session? When I create that activity, you'll see that the title bar has my logo and all the options that I already set for my other poll. This allows me to just repeatedly roll out branding that I can customize easily and quickly. If you've already moved polls between your sub-users and you want to do that same process, but for all polls across your account, you can also find a template poll setting under your account admin, account settings, and set an account-wide template poll that'll roll your branding out to all of your sub-users. So now that we've talked a bit about how to organize your presenters, create content, and distribute that content, let's talk a bit about presenting. The recommended way that I would say to present for large events is to use an AV switch. With an AV switch, you'll have your PowerPoint being presented from one computer and your polls being presented from a different computer, and your AV or events team can then toggle between the two presentations, allowing you to quickly and flexibly add another question if you'd like. Perhaps you notice some feedback in the room and you want to address it directly. You can quickly add additional polls that then your AV team can interact and insert into your presentation. What your AV team will do to load up your polls is simply select the first poll in the group you'd like to present for a session, and then set that poll screen into full screen mode. This will get that content active and ready to go so that your audience is ready to respond when your switch goes over to that poll. Then they'll switch back to your PowerPoint and simply hover here and hit the next arrow to go to the next activity, so that when you want to have your audience respond to this one, your AV team can switch back on. Now, of course, that may or may not work for you. We do also integrate with PowerPoint, Keynote, and Google Slides, where you can insert your presentations directly into those presentations. We won't be covering that on today's webinar, but we do offer an excellent Getting Started with Poll Everywhere webinar every week that walks through that flow in detail and lets you see how to insert them directly into those presentations. Look at you all clicking in my little clickable image poll here. It's a great fun poll type. The reason I chose this poll type was to talk a bit about my next thing. When you're designing and ready to present for your event, I highly recommend an icebreaker poll be on screen when your audience walks into the room. I recommend this for two reasons. One is what I call the peer help factor. When you have a poll on screen as the audience walks in that's fun or engaging, they'll want to respond. However, if they're unable to or run into a barrier, they can turn to their neighbor who has successfully responded and get brought into the infrastructure of responding, so that when you get to your substantive polls and your substantive content later on, your audience is already primed and ready to respond. Now, you've run your event, you've collected the data you want to collect, but you need to prove value to senior leadership. Maybe you want to share your insights with a client or with your team. That's where our full suite of reporting tools come into play. After your event, you can quickly run reports on all of your polls, simply by selecting the polls you'd like to report on and choose our report option. This will open our report creation module. For today's, I'm going to go with the executive summary report. I like it as our primary report, as it's going to give you a high-level overview of each question you asked and the responses you received to those questions. What it's also going to give you is some great participant and engagement scores. 156 people on today's webinar have joined my session, so I have 156 participants with an average of 158 responses and an average engagement of 71. About 87% of the people who joined today's session responded to my first poll, and about 55% responded to the second. However, you can get more drilled in participant data by clicking participants and putting your actual audience size, which for today's session is 215. Now I see that 156 people joined my session, 215 people are in the room with me today, with an average engagement of about 51%. And this is quite often. Often we see engagement rates between 40 and 60%. There are, of course, tips and tricks you can do to incentivize some of that, to increase that. You can offer prizes or rewards for responding. If it's a CLE or there's a mandatory requirement to attend, you'll see those response rates go up. The other thing I recommend is asking questions targeted to your audience. That'll get your audience engaged and wanting to participate in the dialogue. Now that you've got your report, you're ready to present it to senior leadership and show off what you've learned. Well, that's about it for my demo. I'm going to turn it back over to our fabulous host, Courtney.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. All right, so we're going to talk now a little bit about ensuring success with Polarware. So you have a pretty good handle on what you can do with our product, but now a couple of things that we always like to tell our presenters and event organizers. If it's their first time using Poll Everywhere or they're using it at a much larger event or higher profile, definitely practice. Practice. If you're nervous, do a trial run on the hardware you're going to use. Make sure it works seamlessly. Because also from an audience engagement perspective, if something happens to go haywire, there's nothing like the slide not changing or the switch not happening for people to like, oh, let me just check my email real fast, and then and then they don't look up again. Also, hardwire your show laptop with Ethernet. So Wi-Fi, especially at events, can drop at any moment, run out of data. So definitely hardwire the show laptop. Then that means there's no way that unless the actual hardwire drops off, which doesn't happen, that you can have a connection issue. Go ahead.
And to that end, I would say that if you can't hardwire, I know that oftentimes if you're presenting at a hotel or some room where you're unable to get a hardwired connection, you can use a Wi-Fi network. That's where we're going to recommend that it's a separate or dedicated Wi-Fi network from what your audience will be using or other events will be using. This way, you're not competing for network resources to present the polls. You can present all of our polls on a Wi-Fi connection of 10 megabytes per second or higher. The higher you go, the faster load times. But realistically, we've been used in a lot of hotels with very varying Wi-Fi requirements.
Yes. And then also make sure you're logged into Poll Everywhere on the show laptop, because you have to be able to access your polls. You need to be able to be logged in, and then know how your audience will respond, be it from controlling the responses or installing or turning on moderation. But you kind of want to gauge the question or like lead the question to kind of get the like general response that you want. I'm not saying like rig the question, but just don't ask a widely varying thing, especially if it's something that could not build trust with your presentation. And then also, if you are the event organizer or you're coaching speakers, print and distribute the voting instructions. So the speakers know how to tell people how to respond and how to get on to answer on a poll everywhere poll.
Which leads to this last bullet point, coaching speakers and distribute those voting instructions. To that end, you want to set expectations that it takes about 60 seconds for audience to participate in that first poll. This is because it takes them a moment to pull out their device and join. You can speed that up, like I said, by using an icebreaker poll to get people already in the infrastructure of responding ahead of time. However, you'll want to remind your speakers to repeat those instructions the first time they get to that slide, and possibly even every time they get to a slide, especially if there's been a large gap between polls. The third one is just assure the audience that their data is private and that poll everywhere will never spam their phones. Not ever, no way. We don't reach out to participants. We don't market to them. We don't sell our data to any third-party vendors. This is something that we really take seriously, and we want people to feel secure in being part of the dialogue in a meaningful way.
And now we're going to talk a little bit about the specific activity types that we offer and that any solution can offer. And so you probably look at this and you're like, there's a ton of different options. How do I know which one to use? There's a lot of options, and it's really easy to choose the basic multiple choice option, which is the one you're going to see most often. It's our most commonly used activity. It is the one that is the jumping off point to get to things like competitions and surveys and Spotlight. But there's a range of activities, as you see, and each one can benefit from different types of presentations. So the first one, we're going to jump ahead to competitions real fast. It's our latest feature, and it's one that we're particularly excited about. The photo you'll see here is actually one of our team members that presented in front of all of us a competition and ran a competition. We love finding any reason why to run a competition. It is our time point-based activity. So it's like a trivia contest. This is great for trainings. This is great for gauging comprehension in a fun and exciting way. So we're maybe at a training or some sort of leadership or any like sales kickoff, this would be the part where you could put a bunch of multiple choice questions. But you could try a competition where you put 3 to 10 questions, depending on how much time and how many topics you want to cover, and get the audience competing against each other, but they're also retaining the information you're sharing with them. And then, so multiple choice, but we're going to talk about it from a little bit of a different way. There's multiple choice. I think we all pretty much know how it works. We put together a question, give it like 2 to 4 options, and then people can vote on them, and then you see the bar chart populate in real time. There's a couple of good ways to do this. So there's a great this is our most, as I said earlier, this is our most commonly used activity, but it's not a catch-all for everything. There's a great use case from a high school in Washington, which you'll see here. So he's a former principal, and he would start his trainings about trauma with a multiple choice question to help gauge how people feel and how people think about it. And it's a super sensitive topic, so this is a great way to help start that conversation, and he can figure out where to start. And it's a very difficult topic, so this is a great use case for that. One other way that there's a couple of example prompts on there. So one is, how many of these practices do you do, and which of these factors is most important? So there's that second bullet point is one you could ask at the beginning and the end. So one of the ways that I suggest people use multiple choice is at the beginning and at the end of your presentation, you ask the same exact question. And in the middle, you help to educate them, hopefully on the topic that they're not most familiar with, so you can see the instant difference of comprehension of a topic. And most likely it's a topic you're speaking on. So word cloud, as we've seen earlier in this presentation, this might be all of our personal favorite ones after competitions. This is a great way to bring everyone's thoughts and emotions together in this a super cohesive way. You can see which the words get bigger, and the more people submit that word. And so it's really great to see what people are thinking about, and it helps create a trend, and also helps the audience see and helps validate their feelings and emotions too. And there's a couple of example prompts on there, and a great quote from Gabby at the Women's Leadership Summit. And then, so Q&As, when I was putting all of the content on those stages, from attendees and from speakers, the most requested thing I got was, is there room for Q&A? Can we run a Q&A? So Q&A is great, and it's really great if your speaker is interested in hosting a Q&A. I would say never do it without moderation. You never, especially in large rooms, you never know what questions people are gonna ask. So I would say Q&As are great if you can have someone moderate, and that moderator should not be the speaker, be someone behind the scenes that's able to push the questions push the questions that are approved up onto the screen, and then people can upvote and downvote that way. And it can be a super valuable way to address the issues, remaining questions, any follow-up that the audience may have. And then here's a little bit more about how meaningful and how productive Q&As can be. So you can crowdsource these questions, and this helps it helps a whole range of people that may not want to raise their hand and run up the aisle to the microphone stand and ask the question. Like, that's personally terrifying for me in a room of like more than 100 people. And so there's a couple of great stats on here, but it's great to include all of the audience members and some that are not comfortable with public speaking. And then one of the other options is a survey. So if you want to gather a bunch of data that may not be able to be contained in just like one or two multiple choice questions, I suggest at the end of your presentation, you run a live survey. So it can be 3 questions or it can be 10 questions, and it's a self-paced survey, so it's not something they have to be in the room to complete. You can end your session and tell them to go take this survey, and then they can do it at lunch, they can do it on their break, they can do it heading to the next session. And so the use case here is the Georgia Chamber of Commerce wanted to learn more about their constituents, and so more about their residents, and so they sent out a live survey at their town hall because they weren't getting the response rate they wanted in the email survey, because it's really easy to ignore an email, and especially one that you're not expecting to get. And so they increased their response rates to over 80%. And then this is like right top of mind, so people are going to give you like their most fresh opinion of things. And if you're an event organizer, you can implement a survey at the end of each session to collect instant feedback to find out the sessions attendees enjoy the most. Sometimes event apps that you set up might also have this, but this is also a way to do it live in real time. And then here's a few ways that we can help. So if you choose to use Poll Everywhere, we have a great support team. We have a great account management team. And then also you all can just reach out to me personally too, if you want. But we have an amazing support team that can help you make sure that your event's a success. So we give you a pre-event checklist to make sure that when you use Poll Everywhere, you're not forgetting about, the possibility of hardwiring or testing, or what are the system requirements. We have a downloadable instruction sheet. We have a bunch of case studies, especially the ones I mentioned here, that we can definitely send out to you. We also will consult with you and help you figure out what's the best uses and best activities for your event. And then also, if you're hosting a large event, a bunch of our team across all departments goes, and we provide support and coaching on site, and we help run your sessions.